Hi, good morning and welcome to Boom It's on the Blockchain. We're over in Europe this week for our 60th show and we've got a special guest, Zara Zamani. How are you, Zara?
Hi, thank you. I'm great, Alistair, and thanks for inviting me.
No problem at all. So just as we start the show, can you give a bit of background about yourself to introduce you to the viewers?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Zara Zamani. I work today with ChomaWay, the Nordic leading blockchain company, as Chief Solutions Officer. I'm a blockchain solution architect, and it's a table turn now. I interviewed Alistair, was it 3 years ago?
3 years ago in Chain Talk. So we're going back in time. We're getting older. That's the problem, Zara. Kids are getting bigger.
Yeah, now it's the table turn. So yeah, I'm a blockchain solution architect. My expertise have been working with this brilliant technology for the past 9 years almost. So yeah, happy to be.
Yeah, great. So we'll just kick on and we'll talk about ChomaWay and Blockchain 2.0, where you're working right now. So give a bit of background about the company and what the sort of products and services they're working on.
Yeah. So the ChomaWay is a Nordic leading blockchain company. ChomaWay was founded in 2014. And it started actually with enterprise blockchain solutions. So we did a lot of enterprise projects like land registry in Sweden, and then the same project in Ecuador, and eventually we realized that the market is not ready. The market is not there. Enterprises don't understand the technology, and they don't understand the value of the technology. And we understood it. We knew how it's going to change things. So we were like, okay, why don't we build stuff ourselves instead of actually having to convince all these enterprises to get into this technology? And that's when ChomaWay made a turn. So from enterprise blockchain creator, we moved to creating Chromia, public blockchain protocol. And then we started bringing our ideas on table by building them. We started stepping into blockchain gaming world. So My Neighbor Alice, we launched My Neighbor Alice. Well, the game is not launched yet, but we had an ICO of My Neighbor Alice in 2020. And then it was a big success. And then we continued that success with more games, Mines of Delania, Chain of Alliance, and now recently Cloud Saga, another game. And then we stepped into DeFi with multiple projects, NFTs and music. Co-write is also a big success. And now we're stepping quite big to fashion tech. So we recently acquired a fashion company to revolutionize fashion industry using blockchain technology. But we also do a lot of projects in tokenization, which could be a topic of interest of yours specifically. But we started with real estate tokenization. So we acquired a company called Blockhouse in Netherlands, and we are tokenizing real estate and real estate funds with that, starting with that. But then we are developing our own tokenization protocol to basically be able to tokenize any real or physical assets. Yeah.
So let's, before we go talk about tokenization, Zara, speak a bit more about fashion and why is the fashion industry should be interested in blockchain? Because a lot of people obviously are in the fashion industry and now blockchain's here. Where's the connection and where you see the future of this?
I think that's one of the spaces that is going to grow tremendously, because there's a lot of different aspects that blockchain can affect fashion industry. Coming from the world of design, decentralization of design process, because today the design process is very much centralized to a few premium designers that make a lot of decisions for the rest of the world when it comes to design, or for the brands specifically. And so decentralizing that and engaging more designers, and for that then definitely giving access to younger designers who are not probably necessarily from the most privileged geographical locations. A designer in Kenya, a designer in Southeast Asia could equally have the opportunity to work with bigger and premium brands, but also engaging the fan and community, right? So, and that is where DAOs on blockchain come into the picture. Decentralized autonomous organizations come into the picture using blockchain in the fashion world, engaging fans, engaging other designers in upcoming collections of the brand. And when fans and designers are more involved with the brands, that means the brands are producing the designs that are more popular among the customers, and that eventually brings down the overproduction, and that's a big support in sustainability. So that's another aspect that blockchain can tremendously support fashion industry with sustainability and overproduction through fan engagement, right? And then many other things like ownership of the design, because that is one of the biggest challenges today in the world of fashion. Designers are complaining about not having ownership over their work. Like we have a lot of that in fast fashion with platforms like Shein or similar platforms, that there's a lot of complaints that the smaller designers believe that they stole their design, and this is their design. So the proof of ownership of that art piece is actually what blockchain is going to bring to the fashion industry as well. So there's a lot of different aspects and angles that blockchain can definitely support in this space a lot.
And will it work similar to the way sort of NFTs are going to work with art?
Oh yeah, definitely. NFTs are going to be huge in this world, and especially wearable NFTs, right? NFTs that you can wear in your digital meetings or digital appearances. After pandemic, we have now on average every professional spends at least 15 minutes of their week time in digital meetings, and where wearable NFTs can definitely minimize a lot of physical fashion purchase. Did I lose you, or I
No,
kind of
no,
feel?
I'm just there just now. I just, it's, believe it or not, it's just like super sunny in Scotland right now, so I had to shut the blinds, So it's
So wearable.
wasn't expecting the sunshine of Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. That I would be equally surprised if we had sunshine in Sweden now too. Yeah, but yeah, so wearable NFTs are going to be huge. So like now we are talking digitally. I could totally wear a wearable NFT, and you wouldn't even notice that I'm wearing an NFT jacket or NFT accessories, etc. So definitely they're going to play a big role.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So what about the tokenization project and tokenizing real estate? Can you go in a bit more depth of what your company's doing with that?
Yeah, so Blockhouse is the name of the project. Is a lot about giving opportunity to younger generation to be able to purchase real estate from very young age, and to be able to contribute, or to participate in the real estate space with the minimum funds that they have. So it's tokenizing a physical building, and then you can buy into that real estate with the tokens. You can buy in a square meter of a real estate, basically, or So it's again a lot about and then also then the ownership of that real estate is recorded on blockchain, so on an immutable ledger per se, right? So it's proof of ownership, but also accessibility, but also allowing public to take control and participate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when's the first project going to be live then?
With the Blockhouse, I guess we will have. I think there is already the project is already live. We have around $300+ million fund that is being tokenized and managed through Blockhouse today, and there will be more to come on Blockhouse.
Mm-hmm. And that's all part of ChomaWay.
That's all part of ChomaWay.
Mm-hmm. So how many people work in ChomaWay now?
So we have scaled up tremendously in the past 1 year. Last year, January, we were 30 plus. And today that I'm talking to you, we are 238 across 27 countries in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's like the huge scaling up with that, especially within the blockchain industry and the downturn in the industry right now as well.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
So just before we move on from here, what future projects are ChomaWay working on that are going to be of interest to you?
You will hear a lot about ChromaWay in the future in the fashion world, in gaming, and also sport. So these are the areas that we are going very strong in. And plus, we are also taking part in a quite big EU project, which was a three-phase project, and now we're in the well, almost final phase, but we are among the top three in that project, and the winner of that project is going to be EU blockchain provider. So um, that is one of our next year big projects too. But you will hear a lot about us in fashion, gaming, and sport, like I said.
Okay, that's super interesting as well. So let's move on to our next topic that we were speaking about is that in 2022 you've been spoken about as one of the 10 most impactful women in technology. So congratulations on that award. So how's that affecting your life right now, and what interesting projects have you got coming up off the back of this?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. It came as a surprise to myself, because um, I love my job. I just try to be best at what I'm good at, and do it. And I was very honored to be among the top 10 most influential women. But I guess my whole exciting life is coming after all of this, right? So the more you're recognized, it's natural that you will be exposed to more exciting projects, to more exciting individuals that you can collaborate with. So I'm quite grateful for all of these recognitions. But I would say, besides all of this fun part of it, it brings a lot of responsibility too, right? Because it says 10 most impactful women, and then I have to represent these women, right? I have to be a good representative of women in this very, very male dominated space. So it also makes your life more difficult, because you have to make sure that you also give equal opportunity to other women to grow, and you have to make sure that this space is as gender diverse as possible, because today it's not. I'm happy to say that in ChromaWay we are very gender diverse, so we have quite a number of female colleagues, but I'm lucky that I work in such a space. It hasn't always been like that in my life. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. So within your company, ChromaWay as well, what percentage are women compared to men?
I don't have the exact percentage, but I'm 100% sure it's at least 50-50,
Right.
if not
Okay.
women.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we work in a Swedish organization, and gender diversity is quite important in this
Mhm.
part of the world.
So,
Not in all part of the world.
yeah. So, this is good. So, basically we'll move on to the next one because I know we want to speak about this quite a lot as well. Then, gender diversity in Iran.
Yeah.
So, maybe not be is similar to that in Sweden. So, obviously, people are watching on the news. They're seeing what's actually happened. The morality police arrested Masha Amini, and essentially, from my understanding, she was beaten to death in prison. And really, it was just for what she was wearing, or was it what she was saying? So, if you want to give a bit of background about the whole thing that's happened for people to understand, because I don't think it's getting the same coverage in America as it should be right now.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's getting the coverage anywhere in the world that it should be, and part of it, of course, is the media biases, but part of it is also that is so unrealistic. I think is as an Iranian who left Iran when I was a child, and when I traveled there as an adult, like, I couldn't believe it as well. And I understand that it's very difficult for a non-Iranian born and raised in a democratic country, or at least relatively democratic countries. It will be extremely difficult to digest what is happening in Iran, right? but I can tell you a little bit of background. So Iran was a super modern country, right? And we had this Islamic revolution in late 70s. When then since then the Islamic government has been ruling Iran, and we have a supreme leader in Iran. Well, not we anymore. There is a supreme leader in Iran that is relatively well. The power that the supreme leader has is a lot more than the parliament or the president or anyone else, and he is a pure dictator. So
Ayatollah.
yeah, he's definitely yeah, the Ayatollah Khamenei. He's a dictator, and it's natural that the more that it gets close to power being coming back to people, the more they're threatened and frightened by that. The morality police was I think was it started from day one in Islamic regime, but it was just called differently. It was called Setade Amre be Maruf, and it wasn't called morality police. And for your information, when I was to go to high school, my brother and I were arrested multiple times by them because they thought that we were a couple. And every time my mom had to come and prove that we were siblings, and so it was that bad that you couldn't even walk with the opposite gender in the street. So every time my brother and I walked from school back home together, we were like kind of arrested by them. So and then it was changed the name to morality police because they weren't on the street back then, but then they started coming on the streets and starting arresting, like just like guarding the streets, and these guarding was always only for women, and it was to make sure that women are dressed properly, that their bodies not showing, or their shirts or are not short, or their hair is not showing, and they don't have too much makeup, or you literally had zero choice of what you want to wear. Like you had to comply with it, and if you wouldn't comply with it, they weren't going to be kind and nice. No, they would beat you up, they would arrest you, they would treat you horribly. And this has been going on for 20 plus years. So if you talk to any woman in Iran, they have an experience with that. They have been either arrested by the morality police, beaten up by I have been arrested, I have been beaten up by morality police myself, and every single other Iranian girl that would ever travel to Iran would experience that. And everyone was, Masa Amini was not the first one who actually died of this. Masa Amini is the first one that made it international, that went viral. There are so many more before Masa Amini who were a victim of this inhuman group of people, right? But then they took Masa Amini in custody for her, a little bit of her hair showing. And if you look at even what she's wearing, it's like super modest, like super complying. It's just a little bit of her hair showing. And then, of course, she was beaten to death, and this went viral. Today we live in the age of technology and information, and information flies much faster than you think. And then this started this whole protest in Iran that is rooted in a social cause this time, right? We had a lot of protests in Iran for over the past 43 years of the Islamic regime, but majority of the times these protests were rooted in a political reason. But this time it was a social reason, and it was a reason that everyone related to. It could be any of us killed on the street. It could, and no matter if you're a political person, if you're complying or not, you will be killed. So then people were like, okay, I will be killed anyhow, so let me just go out and fight for my freedom. And that's how this whole movement started. And they were trying to convince people that we didn't kill Masa Amini because of hijab, but throughout this convincing, they killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds more to prove a point. So, I mean, that's definitely not proving a point.
Yeah, I think there's over, what, 500 or 600 people now being killed since the
Yeah,
protests?
exactly. And then around, I think, around less than 100, I think around 80 or 90 children. And when we say children, we have children being killed from age 5, 7-year-old girls, 8-year-old girls, 10, 12, 15, like we have around 90 under 18 years old children being murdered, and then thousands of children today in prisons. And actually, two of these children are sentenced to death. So they're going to be executed, 15 and 16-year-old boys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is unbelievable. So just to give a bit of background for people to understand, there's obviously Sunni and Shiite Muslims in the Middle East. So for the Iran, who's the predominant Muslim, and then is there both types of Muslims in Iran?
Yes, definitely. We have Shias. Majority of the Muslims in Iran are Shias, but we also have a lot of Sunnis in the Kurdish area, in the Baluch area. We have or south west of Iran. We have quite a lot of Sunnis as well. And interestingly, this is a very good point that you brought up, Alistair, because Iran is a land of many religions, right? Iranians were Zoroastrians before Islam came, and then even after, we have a quite big community of Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, Muslims, Baha'is, and some of these religions are forbidden, and you're not allowed to be loud about practicing them, or you will generally be arrested for being them, like Baha'is. Some of these religions are very much oppressed, like Jews in Iran, and then or even Sunnis in Iran, very much oppressed. And throughout all these 43 years, the regime always tried to project an image that, Sunnis and Shias have a conflict in Iran. And Kurdish people they are always looking for independency because they're Sunnis and Kurds. And Baluch people are always, so this is the projections that, the regime always tried to project and actually separate people from each other, right? To make sure that people are not unified. But what we see now during this protest is totally the opposite, that how much love and how much support people of Iran have for each other, regardless of what their religion is, what their gender is, what their ethnicity is, because Iran is also a land of so many ethnic groups, right? And people are supporting each other in Baluchistan, which is like southeast of Iran. People are protesting to support the Kurds in northwest, to support the Persia, the Fars, or the Lower, or all the ethnic groups. The Shias are in full support of Sunnis. Sunnis are in full support of Shia, because people are fighting for one cause, and that is freedom from the Islamic regime of Iran. It's not about religion. It's not about politics. It's just they just want this regime gone, because Iran was always a peaceful country without having such dictatorship there.
Yeah, I think I was watching the World Cup, and obviously when USA were playing Iran, it was the standing ovation by the Iranian players and the fans for the USA, primarily because of what was happening right now.
Yeah.
So, from a political perspective, I think when, Americans look at, you're sort of indoctrined to think that, Iran's your sort of mortal enemy, Venezuela, places like that. Now they need oil because of Russia. Now change the rules. But it was amazing for the people there, and you watch the protests that were happening there, and the supporters of both teams, USA and Iran, both coming together at that end of the game, about what's actually happening to the women and the people in Iran as well. So, it's amazing, like sport sort of passes over political divide, and then when people start to understand it, and I think from that sort of opened the eyes to a lot of people in the USA as well, because when we're actually watching the game, and I watched it over there, it was they were coming in, they were going close-ups to the fans as well. They were all having similar t-shirts and protests as you're wearing today as well. And then it was, they were talking about it briefly and what they were actually supporting. And it's amazing that you think like sport can highlight these things, but as you say, the regime sort of wants to just, putting the lid on, if one way or other, we're going to sort of stamp this out, and we'll just go back to the way it's going to be with the Ayatollah running it. But exactly. Do you think that's going to happen this time, or do you think this time it's going to just change?
I have a lot of hope this time. It's not easy at all. It's not easy at all. It's very difficult, I have to say, and it's very expensive. We're losing a lot of loved ones, and people are preparing themselves for everything. Anything could go wrong. You know, I could lose my family, or lose my cousins, and uh, which a lot of people have lost a lot of family members. But that's not only the mental pressure that is a lot, right? And a lot of other consequences. But I think at this point, every one of us, we are willing to pay that price, and we are willing to share that price with each other, so that it makes it easier for us to pay that price. And I am extremely hopeful, and I'm extremely positive that even if it's not going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month, this is the start of their end. I'm very positive about that.
Yeah. And so how does it affect the Kurdish people? Because obviously I do this website, Rebuilding Iraq. So I know about oil and gas projects in Iraq. I don't know, I know my limited knowledge of what's happening in religion. It's Mohammed's my friend that's out there. He always says, you just stick to oil and gas and leave the rest of it to me. But basically, you've got Kurdistan in Iraq, you've got Kurdistan in Turkey, you've got Kurdistan in Syria, and you've got the Kurds. And obviously, I didn't realize that the big Kurdish population now in Iran as well. So how does that affect things? Because I know they want to break away and become their own country. And this creates multiple problems. That's obviously what happened in Turkey recently as well. The bombings that happened there in Istanbul, they were blaming the Kurds. And then suddenly Turkey's attacking Syria, which is, but they're attacking the Kurds in Syria, or they're attacking the Kurds in there as well. How does that all fit together with Iran, and how are the Kurds involved in these protests as well?
Well, for sure, over the past decades, there has been a certain group of Kurdish people who want their independence, and I can't really say much about that because I really don't know where that independence fight comes from. But what I can confirm, and I can um, confidently say, is that the protests in Iran now, especially in the Kurdish, is much stronger in the Kurdish areas, and the regime in Kurdish area is committing a genocide. Is not only killing people, because in other regions in Iran they're killing people on the street, but in the Kurdish region they're committing a genocide. They're going to houses and terroring people, and that is because they want to use this independence excuse to kill them, which is not what they want. Right now they want the same thing that we want. They want freedom from the regime of Iran. Like, they are Iranians, they're just like us. And by the way, Masa Amini was a Kurdish girl, and
Yeah,
that's all Jen Jian Azadi, the chant came from, right? The woman life freedom. And 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 there are so many more that are being killed and murdered during the past 3 months in the Kurdish area. So they're just as angry as us, but the regime is trying to project that, oh, now the Kurdish people want independence. Well, if I want to be honest, even if they have independence from this regime, this monstrous dictatorship regime, I will be happy for them. Right? Anyone that has independence from this regime is safe from them. So yeah,
I know. So they're sort of using this to change the narrative to try and push it onto this as well. So
they want a narrative to something that the rest of people of Iran say, oh no, we don't want to support that because we don't want them to take away a piece of the country. But that's not true. The narrative is that we all want freedom from Islamic regime of Iran, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's because it's so complex, especially for people from the West and that trying to understand what's happening out there. It was
Yeah.
one of those things that the more I started to learn about Iraq, the less I actually knew. So it was because it's such a long history as well. It's basically the start of the world in terms of where we've documented information. For people thinking back there, all the biblical stuff. That's the part of the world where it's all coming from. So when you read your Bible out here in the West, all these places are basically dotted around this part of the world, which is in the Quran.
Right, and it's about your culture. I come from an ethnic group in Iran called Lor, which is neighbors with Kurds, right? Kurdish and Lor people are like neighbors and quite close in culture too. And the Kurdish and Lurs are like the very, very original Persians of that region, right? And we have like thousands and thousands years of culture. And in this culture, women and men are just be equal to each other and just besides each other. And the Islamic regime wants to take away all of this from us, forcing all of us. They want to take us to a heaven. We don't want to go to that heaven, right? Like, okay, no, thank you. You go to that heaven yourself. We want to go to the hell with the rest of the world. Why don't you just let us go to that hell? And and they're taking your identity from you. They're taking everything from you. And the Kurdish people are so rich in culture, so rich in women rights. Actually, the women in Kurdish culture are very much looked up on, and that's the opposite of what the Islamic regime wants. So it's natural that they are by default a threat to the Islamic regime.
Yeah, because the thing about, I remember going to the first time I went to Dubai in the Middle East, and this was to the Middle East Electricity Exhibition. So, it was for 2007 was the first time I went to Dubai. So, or 2006. So, it was quite a long time ago now. And I remember you're going by all the different stands, and it was all split by, essentially by country. And then the thing that amazed me was when I went to all the other stands, and you were going to different places, Oman, and you went to Iraq, and you went to, Qatar. But when we went to Iran, and I'm thinking at this time, because you're watching the media, so the media is basically saying, oh, well, and I'm thinking the first couple of days, I'm not going to go into the Iran stands and, all the different companies. But when I went there, so many of them were from American university anyway. They were the easiest to understand, the most culture. But they had the most amount of women who were educated as engineers, etc. I know you've got an engineering background, which, the other stands essentially, when you went to there, they had sort of models and that just at the front of house doing this, and the men behind. But Iran had the first stand, and like everyone in there, I speak to a woman, and I'm thinking, and I was actually thinking, oh, she'll just be at the front, and you've just got to set an appointment to speak to the guy at the back in his little office. That was how they sort of work there. And then you speak to this female there, and she'd be an engineer, and she just knew everything about oil and gas engineering. It was amazing. And I'm just thinking, and it sort of blows your mind because you're sort of conditioned to think like that. So how's education for women in Iran right now? And is this getting changed as well? Because obviously there must have been the most highly educated people in the Middle East.
Yeah,
for females.
we are. Women in Iran have the highest rate of literacy in the region, so 91%, I believe. And the highest rate of women in STEM in the world comes from Iran, 50. Mm-hmm. So walking around in streets in Iran, and you will meet plenty of engineers or mathematicians or technologists that are women, right? So in terms of education, women could do a lot. However, that is also changing. Now. The government is trying to impose a lot of Islamic education instead. Like, women now cannot be like, when it comes to medical studies, they can only pick a few lines of medical studies that are related to women health only. Or when it comes to, for example, psychology studies, they're replacing the modern psychology with Islamic psychology. Or lowering the rate of entrance for engineering in some universities for women. So they try by all means to oppress women, and that's one thing. There's so many other rights that are taken. You don't have a right over your clothes, what you wear. You don't have, and you don't even have a right to choose to educate yourself. So if your father decides that you should not go to university, you don't have a right to choose that I want to study, because mm-hmm. you're a woman and you need to be controlled by a man. And if your husband wants to stop your studies, the husband can 100% do that, right? You cannot, as a woman, you cannot leave the country freely. You need to have a permission from your husband or your father to be able to leave the country. Right?
Written permission, like a letter, basically.
Yeah, You need a permission. Like, when you get your passport in Iran as a woman, you cannot get a passport unless your husband signs that I give her permission to have. And that's not all. If you are sick, if you're dying, if you need to have an operation in the hospital urgently, the doctors in the hospital cannot operate on you unless your husband allows them to do that. So, and that is the most ridiculous thing I have seen in my life in Iran, because I was in Iran in a hospital once, and I saw a woman screaming and she was giving birth and she needed a C-section. And I was nervous. I was starting to get nervous, and I was talking to the doctor, why is she not getting a C-section? Because the husband thought that she's faking it and needs to do a natural birth. Then the doctors were not taking to, and the doctors were trying to convince the doctor that she's dying, the baby is dying. But the doctors were not taking her to the operation room and do the operation because the husband did not give that permission. This is the type of world we are facing in Iran. And that's why women in Iran are like, no matter what, I'm going to die in this country. So I might as well now go and fight for freedom of my own and my next generation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how are they doing the protests right now? Because we've sort of started to see the protests where they're taking off their hijab and taking it off. But what else are they actually doing right now in terms of protests?
A lot of other ways they're fighting. They're in the universities, especially in bigger cities. The students are doing a lot of protests. They're on strikes. There's a lot of strikes going on today that we're talking. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow is like these 3 days is a big campaign going on that people are on strike during the day, and they're protesting at nighttime. So all the stores are closed down. The transportation is on strike. There's a lot of protests every day on the streets. People are fighting. A lot of protests in universities. University students are on strike. They're not going to the classes. So there's a lot happening. And besides women definitely not wearing hijab on daily basis on the street or in their, daily round.
And they're getting arrested basically for doing that.
They get arrested, they get beaten, they get killed, but they don't care anymore.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. But and these days I have to say that these are the days that I am 100% very, very sad, but I want to channel my emotions instead of staying sad to be angry. It's a lot to take. But I want to stay angry to be able to be their voice, because they cannot talk. And I can at least be their voice, even though I'm threatened as well, not once or twice, many, many times, right? But I chose to be their voice, and I continue being their voice, and being proud everywhere that people ask me where I come from or what I do, and I feel very proud to say I'm an Iranian woman, because I think we showed the world how strong and how brave we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's amazing. We could just talk about this all day, Zara. It's just it's super sad. But yeah, as you say, hopefully this is the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
How old is the current Ayatollah anyway? He looked quite old last time I saw a picture of him.
Yeah, he is quite old. He's in his 80s, but a lot of people also believe that he's already dead. And this is
and then who's next coming behind him? You know what I mean? It's like the guy in North Korea. There's another one coming.
Conspiracy that he's dead, and they're planning for his son to take over. And then the regime is trying to show some. At the beginning they were like really harsh, and now they're trying to show some nice faces. Like they announced 2 days ago that they're going to shut down the morality police. But you shouldn't trust that, because they're just not calling it morality police anymore, right? They're just going to call it differently.
Something in Arabic that no one in the West understands.
Plus this morning there was news that they're replacing morality police with technology, and I was okay. These people, these dictators, they have no IQ, so they don't have any technology. So I wonder where they are getting the technology from. Are they going to buy the technology from a Western country and conducting a mass murder with another technology bought from West? because that's what they did with filtering internets, right? There was a German company that was supporting that. Even and I have to be honest that the German government took action immediately and took care of it. But I mean, that's how it is. They don't have the technology themselves. They need to buy this technology from West, or
Yeah,
maybe East.
yeah. Vladimir Putin might sell them some.
Yeah.
So it's that as well. So well, it's but yeah, it's been so interesting to learn more and more about this, Zara. So well, thanks very much for your time today. We've actually got one comment in here I thought we'll just bring up at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, it's Zara Zamani. He's talking about the join us in December 14th and 15th in the World Summit in Blockchain and Crypto at logitalk.com. Is that anything to do with you, Zara? Or is that someone just promoting off your back, all your viewers?
Oh, well, that would be great. I didn't know about this summit, but I will check it out.
Yeah. So thanks very much. Well, thanks very much for your time today, then, Zara. That's been great.
Thank you.
As you progress with your career and maybe write a book, we'll get you back on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, and thanks for this opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, okay, so thanks for everyone at home. You've been watching Boom It's on the Blockchain. My name's Alistair Caithness. Thanks very much. Have a nice day.